Welcome to week 11, Dynasty Takeaways. I am your host, Brandon, alongside Scott. Scott, we got one more game to wrap up before and there's some major implications. There's Brock Bowers, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson. I'm sure many people watching this are going to tune into this later on, probably need some Monday night miracles to get into, another W here, but we're close to the fantasy playoffs. Like I was looking the other day, and we are inside of a month until the fantasy playoffs are here. How excited are you for the fantasy playoffs? Because I know that's kind of like the time where you really, really start to grind.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're 3 weeks away after this week. After this game tonight concludes, 3 more weeks. A lot of trade deadlines. If you have one, I know we don't really advocate for them, but if you do, a lot of them are over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, this is the time to be realistic, to be the first to the market, to do all the stuff that we've talked about most of the year. At the same time, it's a little sad, Brandon. There is a fun to the weekly grind and drama that comes with injuries and trade values and the volatile market. And, the fantasy playoffs means that's coming to an end for a year. And we have to go through the whole, not that I don't enjoy it. I enjoy the mock draft season and the draft season and rookie drafts and all of that, but you do miss the season when it's gone. So enjoying it, maximizing your teams wherever they are, whether they're good, bad, in the middle. That's what these next 3 weeks are. It's really picking a lane. Doesn't mean it's going to be the right lane, right? It doesn't mean it's always going to be the best decision to push it in or not take a chance on a team that's 6th or 7th place. Sometimes those can surprise you, but that's what it is. This is really the time to grind over the next 3 weeks. Once you get in the playoffs, for a lot of people outside of our leagues, for most part, what you have is what you have. You got to get lucky. I don't know how many teams we've done roster reviews for, Brandon, where they go, I have a great team. I've just got bounced in the finals the last 3 years. What can you do? What can you do? Sometimes you just have to say, I've done enough. I've made enough moves. There's probably people feeling that right now. Everybody they've traded for over the last month is injured again, or not going to be available, or they're not doing what I expected them to do, etc. So we'll probably talk about those. But I'm doing well. It's a little bittersweet, though, because I do miss the season once it's gone, because just the weekly drama and the weekly routine that comes with the season, right? You know how it is, right? In our community, Wednesdays, we're getting practice reports. Thursdays and Fridays, we're talking about sit starts. We're talking about moves that you can make after Monday night. Tuesday morning is all about, well, what do we do for this week? What's going to happen going forward? So you just miss that cadence when it's gone. Doing well, though. Looking forward to the show.
Yeah. It's always fun to, the cadence of the in season is so much different than the cadence of the off season, and just what we talk about and whatnot. But I did see this bold take. We are Dynasty Takeaways here. And this is a bold take from one of our members, one of our Heisman members, Dr. B. Harris. And he comes with a bold take, and it kind of goes along with what you were just talking about, Scott, and kind of goes into one of the takeaways that I have for this week. And his bold take is, only elite assets matter, is a terrible take due to how many injuries happen. Depth was and is the key to success. Now, we just got word today that Jamar Chase decided to, we saw last night that Jamar Chase did spit on Jalen Ramsey, and in turn, he's now out for this week's game. So now that's another elite asset for a minimum of 1 week, right? But for folks that are trying to make a playoff push, they now just lost Jamar Chase for a week, and it's just another week on top of Michael Penix being hurt, on top of Drake London being hurt. We've had a lot of injuries of late where our elite difference-making assets have went down. So how are you feeling about this bold take?
I see where he's coming from. Shout out to Dr. B. Harris. He's been a part of the DD community for a long time. Good take, super sharp dynasty player. I agree with it and I don't agree with it. I agree with him when he says only elite assets matter, in the sense of when you go through an entire season from week 1 to 17, more than elite assets matter, right? How many times have you needed this player you picked up randomly to start, or made a trade where you traded something for a guy that's worth a third? We all know that. We all know that life. We all know the weekly, I have to patch a hole, I have to fill a spot, etc. So, of course, elite assets are not the only thing that matters. If all you had is 4 elite assets and a complete train wreck of a roster, you probably wouldn't win. Even if you had the 4 best players, you still need to be able to plug those holes when they come up. Every team has them, regardless of your format. Where I disagree is I think in the spirit of it, when somebody says only elite assets matter, what they're saying really, without saying the exact words, is elite assets are what matter because they're assuming that everything else, quote unquote, depth is going to be available. It's just, do you want to play the market? Are you active enough in your league to do it? Will your league oblige at the right market price that makes you willing to do it on a weekly basis? Will they even be active enough to respond to your trade, right? Like, I look at it as, if I just had elite assets, but I also had a market that allowed me to go buy players for thirds, swap injured players for replacement players that are healthy, have access to every team that's out of it, and them willing to trade me whatever I wanted as long as I would pay the current market price, then yes, only elite assets matter. So I think there's just a caveat there. Depth matters, but also access to depth matters. I don't need to have depth on my team week 1. I need to have the ability to get it when I need it throughout the long, grueling season that we're only getting into the doldrums of right now. We're starting to get into business decisions. We're starting to get into, that was a good situation, Brandon, until it's not really, because it's starting to tail off towards the end of the year. Like, it's not as good as I thought it would be coming in. So that's where I think depth matters. It's more of just access to depth. Can I go buy depth? Am I in a league where there's an active market? Do I have my picks? Do I have some sexy injured players that people are willing to buy? If so, I don't care if I only have elite assets, as long as I'm active in that market every week. That's how I interpret it. I see what he's trying to say, but I think the spirit of it is not saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, and I would even say, to add to it, context of the league format matters too. Yes,
Sure.
elite assets may matter. Elite assets in a 12 by 13 are not the same as elite assets in a 12 by 9, right? Because of how we're starting. Elite assets in a 12 by 9 lineup are different than elite assets in a 12 by 13 best ball, right? Because the elite asset in the 12 by 13 best ball might actually be having all of the depth, right? Because then sometimes you can control the market. So I like the take. I think where he was going was the right idea. I think there's some times where it maybe the depth does matter, and especially in certain contexts, in certain league formats where you do need to have depth because you can overcome a Jamar Chase out for a week, or if Drake London is out for the rest of the year, he's got a PCL sprain. Dr. Jeff says it could be anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. Well, 2 weeks is still before the fantasy playoffs. 6 weeks, that could be toast. And that's, for some people, is their wide receiver 1 on their fantasy squads. So now what do you do, right? You had this elite wide receiver that's top 5 producing, and all of a sudden now you have to replace it with something else, and that's, so I can understand where, the depth is the key to success. And I think they can almost coexist too, right? Elite assets matter, but the depth is how you overcome sometimes the variance of losing an elite asset.
Yeah, I think you gave a good example of, if you're in like a 12 by 13, you might already think, man, it's hard to really value really elite players here. And that's just because you have to start so many players. There's this secondary market that exists for pretty much everybody else that's not elite. Because I think one thing that we can probably say is true, and this is backed up by data, if you just look historically at like how the distribution of points are every single year, like there isn't more than 15 to 25 elite players in a given year, ever. Now, there may be elite dynasty values that are fake values that are inflated because of the perception of a player, but when you look at, in totality, production and like kind of like the peak dynasty value, it's really around like 15 to 25 players that truly are difference makers. And that could be a difference maker. If Jaden Daniels isn't a difference maker this year, but the asset Jaden Daniels could have been a difference maker for your team if you used it right. Same with like Ashton Genty, not a difference maker, but the asset, if you would have moved it at the right time, could have gotten you difference making production. But outside of that, it's really the everything else is. And when you get into like the 12 by 12, 12 by 13, a lot of people will say, well, I don't value, like Brandon, let's say you have an average roster that you have 2 elite players in a 12 by 13. As is, you may not value the 2 elite players because you don't have the ability to backfill the adequate level depth, or quote unquote, to embrace the fact that you have 2 stud players, right? So if all you had is 2 studs and not a lot else, you're immediately going to say those assets are overvalued. But really what it is do I have access to backfill with the adequate level of usable players every single week. And that's different for every format. That's different in a 12x9 versus a 12x12 versus a 12x13 best ball league versus a 2QB league. I mean, there's so many different nuances. Because think about it. Let's say you lost Jamar Chase in a 12x9 or Drake London in a 12x9. You can't replace them. Most likely you can't replace them because there isn't somebody to replace them. Sure, you could trade them for CeeDee Lamb, or you could trade them for insert whatever receiver is the equivalent of Drake London. But assuming you can't get that deal done, the level of what you need to keep up with the Joneses to replace one of those guys in your lineup is a lot higher. You know what I mean? Like the level to replace one of those guys, it's like T. Higgins, Zay Flowers. It's like that level of player. In a 12x13, that's already spoken for as a starter easily. So the level of depth is different when you do different formats. It's still the access. If you lose a Jamar in a 12x9, it's not about, what probably needs to be the level to replace him with, but is it accessible? 12x13, you know what you need to replace them with? A live, warm body. And that's probably more accessible. So it's really the accessibility. This is an accessibility conversation, but I love the question by Dr. B.
Yeah, that was it was a good opening take, and it was a good thing to think about. So one of the things I was thinking about today, as I was preparing for this afternoon, and I actually have all the takeaways up here. I'm going to put the first takeaway up on the screen. Our rosters are littered with inefficient players, Scott. We are coming down the stretch, and this is not just, and I wanted to leave it as our rosters because it can be contending rosters, and it also can be teams that are completely out of it, right? And you've seen some of my rosters. They are completely they're hot dog water, to put it mildly, to put it best. Like there are some awful rosters, but those teams are littered with inefficient players. And by inefficient, I mean, I am not utilizing them to their fullest potential, or I'm not using that roster spot to the fullest potential, right? Why am I holding on to, as a contender, why would I be holding on to somebody right now like Luther Burden? If I am competing, I'm in first place, and I have Luther Burden, who is wide receiver 79. I get it. There might be some dynasty value to him in the offseason, right? They may move on from DJ Moore, or they may move on from Roma Dun. They're not going to move on from Roma Dunze, but they may move on from Cole Kmet, and all of a sudden he's, the fourth option. But why am I holding on to him when we're going to get a new crop of 2026 wide receivers? And we're already looking at least a minimum of 4, if not 5 or 6 wide receivers that are going to be drafted higher than or equal to his draft capital. And we're just going to push Luther Burden further down the dynasty ladder. Like, that's just one example, right? But we have rosters where if I was to pull up one of my MFL rosters, or one of my sleeper rosters, or anybody's random sleeper roster, and you gave me top to bottom every single player, there's probably 2 or 3 guys in each one of these rosters where I'm like, why do you even have that guy? He should be on the waiver. He should be already cut, and you should be picking up player A or player B, because you are giving away an opportunity, especially in best ball. Lineup, I can understand why you would hold on to a Luther Burden, but especially in best ball, we've got too many inefficient rosters. Way too many.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to just understanding why you have each player on your team. Because I can probably show you a lineup league where Luther Burden his mechanism was never to be part of your run for the title. And so you've always had to kind of weigh how many players like that with that archetype that probably are a value bump in the offseason, that the market probably values a lot higher than their production. How do I want to use that asset? Because I have a lineup league. I know I have Luther Burden. I have a playoff team. But I've kind of put him in the spot already where he's on he has a different purpose on my team than to try to add to upgrade my lineup. Would I add him to upgrade my lineup? Sure. But it isn't something where I have to obsessively get rid of him to do that over the next couple of weeks. So I think it comes down to, inefficiency. When people think of that, they go, it's not as black and white as I have a contender. Every single piece I have needs to be a contending piece. But you need to be able to, regardless of your format, lineup, best ball, deep, shallow, whatever. You need to be able to define why you have a player on your team. And if you can't do that immediately, and I'm going to give people a little slack, like, sure, you may be carrying a player where you go, I thought they'd be usable for the last week or two, and then they're not. So they're probably somebody to be a cut candidate. But you should be able to say, very quickly why you have a player. There are players that I'm holding simply because they're value vehicles going into the offseason. They're not going to help me right now. Their market might not even be there to help me right now. But I'm looking forward going, you know what? This guy's probably going to be a running back on a 53 next year, so I'm just going to keep him. Even if he's out for the rest of the year right now, or he's the fourth running back right now, or he's buried on a team where he's never going to get any work. But I can give you a reason why he's on the team, Brandon. And you just accept. I mean, we're in a lot of leagues where there's deep rosters. You know, that start 12 with 32-man rosters. Like, not all 20 spots on my bench need to be for the sole purpose of upgrading my starting 12. So as long as I can tell you why I have a player, and it's not just, oh, well, I forgot he was on my team. And we've all seen that. We've all seen, I'm sure there's people in the chat that I've already recognized a few names of people that are in leagues with me. You know, you'll randomly see in a lineup league, someone will cut Jack Doyle in week 9. It's like, dude, did you not look at your team for the last 2 seasons? You know, if someone just cuts a Zeke Elliott, you know, like, that's inefficiency. That is, I don't care about my bench. None of those players are going to matter. Meanwhile, you never know when that extra player you pick up. I'll give a shout out. You remember old Eric Vanek, right? One thing he used to do in every league, when a player got ruled out on Sunday, he'd move all 7 of those guys to out and pick up 7 turd players, because you never know. You just now, does everybody go to that level? Does everybody go to that individual, every roster spot level? No. But that's inefficiency, Brandon. When I look at your best ball team and you're holding a guy that's been out for the year and you don't have him on IR, that's inefficiency. Even if he's not worth anything. You know what's worth something more? An active player. Like, that's inefficiency. When you just simply can't tell me why the player's on your team, I think that's the inefficiency. And then to your point, sometimes we get stuck in our biases. There's players that you could easily flip for somebody else that's in the same category or same tier. Man, I just can't. I can't move him. I cannot move this guy. You go, yeah, but he's no different than that other guy someone's offering you, and he might be able to help you down the stretch. I just can't do it. There's some inefficiency there too. But I think it comes down to just not being creative enough and maximizing every spot. But it's more complex than just, do you have some bad players that don't necessarily fit your direction? You just got to be able to define why each roster spot is important.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like, I just pulled up the league we're in, the USFFL, the original lineup league. I just went and looked at my bench. Why am I holding on to Stetson Bennett? Why? I already have Mac Jones. I already have Davis Mills. What am I holding Stetson Bennett for?
Hey, you know what?
I'm just saying.
Okay, let me ask you. We're going to do a quick exercise. Why are you holding on to Stetson Bennett? Because guess what? I'll look right now, Brandon. I have Stetson Bennett rostered in 5 leagues, and I can tell you exactly why I would roster him. So I don't think you're wrong by holding on to him, but you're wrong if you can't tell me why the hell you're holding on.
Well, that's the problem, is I can't tell you why. He's just got to go. Okay. I already got 4 quarterbacks, and I have Lamar, and I have Trevor Lawrence in that league. So, and I got Garrett Nussmeier because it's a Devy league. So I already have 5. I'm going to have, he's going to be my QB6. How many times in a lineup league am I going to use Stetson Bennett? Probably 0. And even if he does, what's the market for him? A 5th?
Well, that goes back to roster construction principles, right? If I have a team with only 2 starters, you know what, I'm willing to kind of move. And we're getting to the point where we're starting to think about 2026. As much as we don't want to think about 2026, there is a world where Stetson Bennett is the Rams' backup next year, right? That's the only reason you would hold him. It's not because he's ever going to be a starter. He is the next up on a team that probably has a clue what they're doing on offense, right? That is the sole reason I'm even rostering it. So I can dedicate a spot or 2 or 3 or 10 in a lineup league towards quarterbacks that I think fit that build next year. The inefficiency is, like you said, you have 4 that are locked in, loaded ahead of him. That's one where you probably don't want to be rostering many, if any, backup quarterbacks at all, because it doesn't fit how your team is already built.
Yeah.
That's the inefficiency, is that the theory on Bennett is good, but it doesn't fit the build that you already have going, where you have, and I'm in the same boat. I have a league where I think I have Josh Allen, CJ Stroud, Bo Nix. When I acquired Bo Nix as my 3rd QB, because it was a good deal, that I immediately shouldn't have a backup quarterback. So what was the corresponding move? Will anyone give me fab for Tyson Bagent or this court? You know what I mean? Any backup I was rostering needs to go. And that sucks, but that would fit the construction that you're already building. When you have 3 good quarterbacks, you're already a little overexposed, but you could sell me on why you would need those 3, but you don't need 6 like you were talking about.
Yeah. Why do I need Cameron Johnson? What's he doing? Cut. What is Adam Troutman doing? Cut. Like there's just, and these are the inefficient types, but we all have those types. And I think that was what I was trying to get at with the takeaway. Is not, don't cut them all. Don't just erase them all. But if you don't have a story for them, or they're like literally like wide receiver 14 on your roster, and they're never going to hit your lineup, and they're not going to be worth anything. We all probably have 1 or 2 players on our teams right now as we're getting close to playoff time where we probably can. We would much rather have the free and open roster spot to go pick up, I know he's on a roster right now, so don't flame me, but like Kareem Hunt when he came back to the Chiefs, right? Those kinds of a situation like that where you get somebody who walks right into instant production land, right? It may not be, it's not going to be Kareem Hunt, but the idea of a running back or a wide receiver that just runs right into instant production. You want to have that roster spot, but you're sitting there like, I don't know. I should keep this Adam Troutman. You just never know if something's going to hit. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? Just cut the player. You're not, the value that you potentially could return for him is probably not even close to what is out there on the waiver wire.
Well, what is it more likely in lineup leagues to be cloggers? Probably receivers and tight ends. I can pretty much always sell you where a running back or a quarterback in a lineup league could have some equity. If you're playing any running back or any quarterback can start. Hell, we've seen enough examples of that this year where I was just looking at some numbers, Brandon. I know people absolutely hate the trivia, but how many of the top 100 quarterback performances, so it's about 20 points in a week this year, how many of them have been done or achieved by quarterbacks that were not starting to start the year? Throw this out to the chat. So there's 20-point or more quarterback performances this year. How many have been produced by quarterbacks that were not the starter to start the year? And that does not include Jackson Dart. He is eliminated from this conversation. We're talking scrubby backups. They had no path to a future. How many of them?
So that takes Flacco out because he's technically started the season.
Yep.
Right.
Flacco and Dart are not out. Or are out, correct.
Okay. So like guys like Jacoby Brissett, guys like Davis Mills. I'm going to say there's at least 15 or 20 performances.
It's not 15. It's when you think about the number and you're removing some of those caveats, it's not that high. It's only 8.
8.
But again, that's removing guys like Dart. That's removing guys like Flacco, who were clearly not valued as starters to start the year. When you add those guys in, you're up at 15. You know what I mean? So, and that's stark when you just think about that. Even 8 out of 100. We're not talking 8 out of 100 were speculative. Those were like, if you just played the any quarterback on a 2 deep, you stumbled into, dude, if you would have started Jacoby Brissett and Davis Mills the last 2 weeks, you've literally had it's like you had Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes on your team. That's the level of production you were getting for the last 2 weeks. I mean, that just the fact that you see that happen tells you that really any quarterback you could see a path with is worth rostering. I mean, dude, look at some of the running backs that have produced. It's the receivers. It's the Cameron Johnson, like you said, Cameron Johnson and Adam Troutman in a lineup league. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you, even in the deepest of leagues, there's 20 better things you could do with those 2 players. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, it's the Jalen Tolberts. You never know. If CD Lamb goes down, he becomes the wide receiver too. And it's like, dude, right. Just don't talk yourself into that one. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh man. Here's takeaway number 2 that I came with. And I know this is you're gonna think Shane put a gun to my head for this one. Right? But go buy the Eagles the rest of the season. Go buy Eagles offensive players. Go buy into it. I'm as big a Giants fan as there possibly is. And I'm telling you, go buy Eagles. I mean, listen, all this smoke that's going on right now with Jalen Hurts and the revolving door of who's going to be the offensive piece flavor of the week, whether it's AJ Brown. Last night, Smitty got left off the train. A couple weeks ago it was AJ Brown. A couple weeks ago it was Saquon Barkley. Like, I just went and looked before we jumped on, and I shared this with you, Scott. So, like, the Eagles have the 26th softest schedule going into the rest of the offseason, like the rest of the season. So they've got 7 games left, and they've got 2 games against the Commanders, which we know they have fallen off the wagon hard. They've got a game against Las Vegas. They've got a game against Dallas. They have a game against Buffalo. Like those 5 teams, those 5 defenses are awful. Dallas and Washington are like it. You know, we joke about the Giants being the get right team. Like outside of the Eagles, literally, if you want to get right defense, it's go face the Giants, go face the Commanders, go face the Cowboys. And the Eagles get 3 of those games coming down the stretch.
And they get the Bears. Bears are another team that Dallas, Chicago, Buffalo, those 3 especially, like those teams will fight you back. You know what I mean? You will not hold those teams to 10 points. And so you're probably getting in those game scripts that the Eagles do have to. I mean, it may not be A.J. Brown. It may not be Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith and Saquon and Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is kind of just pieces of their offense, right? Like not every game's going to be 16-13.
Correct. I think the last 2 weeks have been against 2 very good defenses. And I know some folks will be like, oh, the Lions secondary is bad. Okay, you know what they didn't do last night? They really didn't get burnt last night. Like we've been saying that the Lions secondary has been bad for a while. And the last few weeks, they've actually been really good. That front 4 is nasty. Aiden Hutchinson is a terror. He's a menace, you know, and the Green Bay Packers defense, pretty stinking good. Like those are 2 teams that we're going to give the Eagles fits to begin with. Right. Like, but the Cowboys, you can get Marshawn, you can get Overshown back all you want. That secondary is still bad. It's still going to be rough. Now, tonight it might look different because Geno Smith is out there, but I mean, anytime you get 2 games against the Commanders and you get the Las Vegas Raiders and you get the Buffalo Bills, who literally can't stop anybody right now, the Chargers, I need to go see, is that game in LA or is that game in Philly? Because if that game
is at LA.
Okay, so at least the Chargers will kind of wake up and try. If it was on the East Coast, I'd be a little concerned because the Chargers east of Texas this year have been awful. Like just they haven't even shown up. They got on the flight, and I'm pretty sure there was scrubs underneath those helmets for half of those games. Like, I'm not saying like they're world beaters. I'm not saying like go over the top crazy, but I think in about a month or so, we're going to look back at today and say, you know what, the Eagles had a pretty good stretch here down the stretch. They're going to be number 1. They're probably going to be the number 1 seed. They're going to be 14-3 or 15-2. They're going to be the number 1 seed. The NFC is going to go through Philly once again. And sure, is there going to be controversy on the way? Sure. It just seems like everybody wants to hate on them right now. But you know what? They're not worried internally. They're worried about winning football games. And I think we're going to see a lot of fantasy points coming from that offense over the next 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, I don't hate the call. I think the thing about the Eagles is I can probably sell you on you could buy all the Eagles. They're probably all attainable. Hurts is probably the least attainable, but you know how people are in Dynasty, man. Like they get wind that a quarterback is not on anything but solid ground, and then it's just narrative city. You know what I mean? Like that's already starting with Hurts, even though there really shouldn't be anything volatile about him. I already saw a thread on X earlier. He's the next Kyler. You know what I mean? Like he's the next quarterback that like just doesn't mesh with whatever they're doing. I'm not saying he's Kyler, but like you can already see that conversation happening. And then I think all of their skill players are attainable. If you're willing to pay the market price, like, and you have the right format, I'm not saying go buy Dallas Goedert in a non-tight end premium league where you already have a tight end similar or better. But I think in a 175, 2 PPR, like he might be the type of guy you could get for a third, you know what I mean? And it's a flex. And you catch one of these nuclear weeks where he goes 8 for 90 and a touchdown. And you're like, wow, Dallas Goedert just gave me, 27 points and it came out of nowhere. Like if you can catch one of those and you have a spot and you have a plan, I think I can sell you on every single one of the Eagles being a buy. Saquon, you know Saquon's going to have 2 games if he's healthy where he scores 20 plus. I don't know which. You don't know if it's going to be 30 plus or if he's going to have some duds, but like there's probably a spike week potential with all of them. And I think the situation right now makes them all attainable.
Yeah. I mean, they have a poor environment score. Yep. There's definitely some issues with the offense. Like I'm not saying that this is going to be foolproof. right? But when I look at the schedule and I look at defenses and I look at who they've got the rest of the season, you mean to tell me that I'm going to sit here and tell you guys to bench AJ Brown or bench Devonta Smith for somebody who's comparable, and they've got a matchup where they got the Commanders or the Raiders? You're going to feel good about those situations, right?
Well, and
It's like it's going to improve a little bit. And Aloha Panda says this, right? Like it does. The rest of the season it will improve. The thing that's probably working against my argument is the fact that the Eagles do play slow, and they're going to probably run the football quite a bit, especially if they're up. They're going to run the football, and but maybe this is a spot where you get a cheap Tank Bigsby.
well,
where you can. Yeah, go
right.
for it. Scott.
Just remember that the environment score doesn't count running backs. It doesn't count quarterbacks, right? So like Jalen Hurts and Saquon are not even a part of that. But I do think the one component that's not included in there, at least the one that I posted earlier today in the Discord, is the concentration score. Like the Eagles on the season, they still lead the NFL in concentration of targets to their top 3 players. Okay, they are at 75% for the season to their top 3 players. Their next highest player is Jahan Dotson at 6%. And then they have nobody else over 3.5%. So at least if you're buying a poor environment, you do have the concentration thing going for you, right? Like there's going to be one Eagle every week that's good. No matter who the opponent, game script, etc., is going to be in the passing game. The right script, like you're talking about, probably 2. They can still be a poor environment, but they have the concentration that makes me at least willing or tolerant to buy into it. So I like the call. I think it just depends on your format. You got to understand how to value the running backs and the tight ends based on your scoring. And you also have to understand, like, if I'm buying AJ Brown or I'm buying Devonta Smith, like, what is the level I'm buying them at? But I don't hate the call. And of course, I'd want to get Jalen Hurts if I can get him. I don't even know what the Jalen Hurts deal is. It looks like it'll be fun to see what those deals are over the next couple of days with
the news,
the drama coming out that he's on the hot seat more so than anybody thinks. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking right now. You got Raiders, Commanders, Bills in the playoff weeks. Like that is
the only scary thing about Commanders and Raiders is like those teams may not even be able to fight.
Yes.
Like it could be like what it was last night, but the other team can't do anything. So it's kind of like it could be a little frustrating. Whereas those other matchups, as much flack as they get, I'm guessing Philly doesn't go into Dallas and win 16-10.
Correct.
They just won't. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna have to do something. And that's where it's looking at the schedule is a little bit more than how good or bad the team is. Like you got to start looking at some of these matchups. Like, I think when we drafted over the summer, it's like, oh man, they have a great schedule. Yeah, but if the team is just completely dead, there's no fruitfulness.
Week 15 at home against the Raiders probably is a little scary, but week 16 on the road against the Commanders, I feel better that the game is on the road, not the week 18 game where they probably sit everybody because they've already wrapped everything else. That's the game at home where I'm like, and they're probably going to get up for the Bills game. So, I mean, for 16,
for sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like 16 and 17, they're getting up for those 2 games. That game's in Buffalo. Like they're going to play up on those games. And those are the kind of, again, the Buffalo Bills defense is very gettable. We watched yesterday, like Sean Tucker absolutely destroyed them. Like running backs have completely destroyed the Bills the last few weeks. And that would be the kind of game where if you have Saquon, you're going into it week 17, you feel good. And that's all I'm saying is just, these are guys that I'm willing to accept the variance because the rest of the season, they're probably going to bounce. They have to bounce back at some point. Because if they don't bounce back, there's going to be so many questions going into the 2026 season. Like if you think it's bad now, it's going to be even worse. And if you've lived anywhere near Philly or listened to anybody in Philly, those guys are going to eat this team apart if they fall short of the goal.
Yep, high expectations. I actually like the Saquon call. Aloha Panda said Saquon. Saquon's probably the buy because if anything, you buy him for now and you feel like you're overpaying for a running back that's not having like an elite season. But you know what? Dude, look at what McCaffrey is still doing this year. I was going through the numbers in the Discord, Brandon, over the last 3 seasons. Of course, McCaffrey's missed some time. But dude, do you realize how good he's been over the last 3 seasons on a per game basis?
It's stupid.
He's like Jamar Chase was at like 20.3 points per game over the last 3 seasons, which was second. And then when I added in running backs, McCaffrey was like at 23 a game. Like he blows every other player out of the water by like 15%. Now he was injured last year. He killed me last year. But like the games he's played, I think he's played 31 games now since the start of 2023. Like, dude, on a per game basis, I'm not saying Saquon's that, but like that's kind of what you can think maybe you get over the next couple years that isn't priced into his current market. So yeah, I'd be buying some Saquon. That's a good one. I may send out some offers.
Yeah. The other one, and it's the final takeaway, is I'm buying some Devon Achane. The guy has just been a complete wagon.
Yeah.
I know Scott said it in the offseason. Scott early in the offseason was like, he said it in our group chat. It's me, him, Ray, and Jay Rich. Man, Devon Achane's top 5 running back. We all pushed back on Scott. We were like, Scott, no way. No way, Scott. It's not going to happen. Like, and Scott laid out the case. And sure enough, that case is pretty much held out. And I mean
dude, he's right there since they all came into the league together. Mm-hmm. He is neck and neck, actually above Bijan and Gibbs. They all came in together. He's above those two in production, just slightly over Gibbs. But like, it's time that we at least put him in that conversation with those guys as like, sure, they're all volatile if there's a coaching change or if there's this or if there's that. But like I think that's all it was, is he just belongs in that conversation with those guys. You can say those guys are better. You can say the market liked those guys better. They had higher pedigree, higher draft capital. All that stuff is true. But I think if there's at all a discount, like a 5% discount, hell, we were on the stream last week and Ray drafted him as high as he did in the startup.
Yeah.
First round of the startup. Or was it first or second?
It was the second pick because he took Gibbs right first.
Yeah, no way I would take him over some of these other guys. And it's like, why not?
Yeah, he's the only guy.
With you.
He's the only guy that has double-digit points in half PPR all season long from the running back position. That's including Jonathan Taylor, who's having, the MVP caliber season. And I think a lot of what the fear is with Achane, there's 2 fears, right? One is his size because he's tinier than the other guys, and the other one is there's uncertainty with Miami. But here's the reality: is like they could rip off 3 more wins in a row and get 7-7. Then they win 1 or 2.
You know where there's uncertainty, Brandon? The Falcons.
Yes. Yeah, that's
you can't make an argument on Achane.
Yeah.
If you're going to make an argument, not going to make an argument on Bijan, right? Like, don't you think that's a fair take? Like,
yeah,
both their offenses could, but I'm with you. Like the Dolphins look like the team that could just have to run it back because they don't have any other choice.
They don't have any cap space. They're already $30 million in the hole for next year. They're obviously probably going to need to cut Tyreek Hill or restructure his deal. They'll probably come to Tua and say, hey, let's get some refinancing so we can figure out this team and kind of try to run it back for 26. But I mean, if they're running it back for 26 and Mike McDaniel, who clearly the owner wants to keep, that means the similar offense is coming back in 26. And you know what that means? There's a lot of Waddle and a lot of Achane. And they'll figure whatever tight end, they'll figure out whatever cheap cast off tight end, whether it's been Gesicki, it's been Jonnu, now it's Greg Dulcich and Darren Waller. They'll just find the next dude. They'll just find another guy that will take a $2 or $3 million deal. They're fine with running whatever. I mean, they're probably in the concentration score, Scott. They got to be high up there. But I don't know that does it factor running backs the concentration score?
Doesn't factor running backs.
So
that's probably
but if it did, it probably would be pretty tight because most times when Tua's throwing, he's throwing to Achane, Waddle, and then more than likely the tight end. I mean, Malik Washington had a little bit yesterday, but I mean, it's a pretty concentrated offense. And when you get a concentrated offense, you get maximum fantasy points and opportunity. And I think that's just definitely, as much as we want to say, McDaniels is on his way out the door, like, again, look at their schedule the next 3 weeks and tell me they can't win all 3 and be 7-7. And then they go win 1 or 2 more games. And all of a sudden they have 8 or 9 wins. And you're looking at them like, man, they're just like 1 or 2 pieces away from being right there in the playoffs next season. That's all it takes. And once you get that and you get the security of Achane, and let's say he signs an extension because he's getting close to extension time. Now, all of a sudden, what? Now, what do we have to do? Now we have to keep him in that range because that's the biggest, the two biggest issues for everybody with Achane is his size and his durability, right? It's not the production because we already laid it out. His production is right up there with the top. He's tiny and he can get hurt. I mean, everybody probably held their breath yesterday when he got bent over like a cheap piece of paper on the goal line. But for me, like I'm buying Achane. That's just a guy that I want to invest in. I know that it probably is going to cost me a first and a significant piece, whether it's another first or whether that's, a running back that's maybe a tier 2 below. But that's the kind of guy those are the kind of guys that if I'm trying to consolidate, I want to consolidate into those guys, not into the RJ Harveys, the Cam Scataboos. I'd rather go up and use those guys. What on top of RJ Harvey, what first plus RJ Harvey can get me to Achane? What can that get me? Because that's probably the kind of deal that's going to pry the Achane away from that team, because right now they are riding all of that production out and they do not want to give them up.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my next question is like, how are you trying to target him? Because I think we're not saying go pay Bijan to get him or Gibbs to get him. Like you're trying to tier up here, but you're trying to take advantage of maybe a slight inefficiency in the market. Like basically what we're saying is Achane is an elite player, like Dr. B was talking about. He just may have a little more attainability than some of the elite players. I think you have to be creative with how you get them. You have to make the other manager feel like they are cashing out because you're more likely to hear somebody say, this is the best it's ever going to get for Achane. I'm cashing out at his peak. Whereas somebody may go, Gibbs can get better. Do you know what I mean? Like just the bias will say, I'm not sure Achane can ever get better versus the other guys are probably going to sustain a little more or they can get better. When the reality is, you know what? All three of those guys right now, Brandon, are probably at their peaks. If you just had to bet, like all three of them are so good that they're probably already close to their peak. Could they have one of those JT or Saquon seasons where they go nuclear? Sure. But I don't bet on the nuclear year. I'm betting on them being kind of where they are right now. They're very good. They're borderline like elite players across the entire NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, it kind of feels like barring a dramatic change, like they're pretty steady. You know what I mean? He just feels like the one that's most attainable. 22% target share on the year for Achane.
Yeah, he's got 4.9 catches per game. That's that's literally the exact same amount of catches per game as Ted McMillan, as Lad McConkey.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's in that range just as a wide receiver. He's just over there at that range. And then you add in the fact that he's averaging 81.9 yards rushing per game. Like you just throw that in there, which is top 5. So you have this top 5 running back with top 20 wide receiver potential stuck on top of it as like a multiplier. And you get, a guy that, even as he slows down and maybe breaks down a little bit, okay, maybe he doesn't rush for nearly as much, but you know what he's probably still going to be? He's probably going to be closer to like a miniature version of Austin Eckler, or like a Darren Sproles, where all of a sudden, he's next to Ollie Gordon and he's still got 5 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown, and he's a flex player.
He's very much like peak Kamara is what I would say he's very close to.
Yeah.
And if you remember Kamara, every year it was 80, 90, 100 targets. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you can pencil those in, and then, the touchdown luck, the big play rates, like that kind of thing kind of defined how good of his season was relative to everybody else. But it's a really intriguing skill set that he has. That it not even Bijan can replicate it. I think Bijan's a better just like every down to down, build the offense around running back. But it's hard for me to look at Bijan and go, I'd rather just have him over Achane.
Yeah. Bijan feels more like the JT in a few years, right? Where he just slowly kind of he's still there. He's still producing at a high level, but maybe he's not at the elite clip, right? But he's still really good. Like that's the way he'll kind of fall off. Whereas Achane will kind of, the rushing production will probably shut off faster, but he still has the ability to use his catching prowess to still provide fantasy value.
What do you think? I think if you can use 26 picks, especially,
sure.
I mean, if you haven't watched the last week's show, we did the 26 mock. We talked about the value of the 26 class. I mean,
yeah,
you may disagree. I think there's still value in the flexibility of having picks, but I think if we could use 26 first like this to get elite players, quote unquote, elite players, I'm fine with doing this.
Yeah. If I'm not using,
this is your move. If you trade what this trade proposed on the screen that is your move. Achane blows a knee next week, you're hurting, right? You gave up all your flexibility. You took a risk. It didn't work. That's usually what goes through people's minds when they're going, should I give up 2 first plus to get a player? It isn't that you're not getting a good deal, because you're probably only talking about buying elite players in that range. but you're just giving up the bailout. You're giving up the flexibility. You know what I mean? You're giving up the ability to do other stuff. Yep. But when you really look at it, especially if you're in a 12 by 10, 12 by 11, like that's the type of player you're looking to get that could swing your title.
Yeah, this is probably the one. Can you do Judkins in a late first for Achane?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like that's probably, if you don't like the offense, if you don't like the Browns, that's probably the one right there. Yeah, he got this one. I know you saw another one. I do think that he's probably going to be used similar, DS.
Well, I think part of your bet is there isn't going to be
a next betting.
Regime. The next regime is going to be in 2027 or beyond. And I mean, that's part of the bet, right? Like that is part of the bet. I do think probably to be fair, I think some of Achane's viability is also Tua related, right? Like the way Tua plays is great for Achane because it's like, get rid of the ball. And he's usually, 22% target share. He's probably the best option or the second best option on every single draft back.
And I would push back on this and say, what is Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright doing? They're already using those guys. So it's not like,
who cares?
Like,
I want them to use Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright. You know what I want from Achane? What he's doing
right now. Yeah. I mean,
I like that one.
That's a good one.
Ryan said Jefferson for Achane. Yeah,
that's a spicy one.
20% more production in the last 2.5 years than the other, and it's not the one you think.
Yep.
Man,
I mean,
one.
That was a good one, man. I didn't realize the Achane hive would be the one that would stir the conversation today. But I mean, hey, drop the comments. As you make deals this week, drop them in. Like I respond to just about every comment, good, bad, ugly, and different. I will drop. So drop your comments in. Let me know what you guys got your Achane for. Let me know what you got, what you had to pay to go get those Barclays, to go get those, Hurts. Like we want to know, like, are we completely off on the market, or are we kind of thinking like, would you do Hendo in a late first for Barkley Achane? Maybe Achane, but I'm not doing it for Barkley. For Barkley, I probably would almost swap out Hendo if I want.
If you're coming off this Hendo week and the hive that Hendo has right now, the steam that he's got after these past 2 games,
I bet you there's a plus on Barkley.
You know who Hendo gets this week? Cincinnati. I'm just saying, like, I'm not even starting with Hendo in a late first. I'm starting with Hendo, and I'll give you something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll give you Hendo in a third. You give me Hendo in a third, I'll give you Barkley in a second. Like I think the higher pick needs to be on the Barkley side. That Hendo steam is so out of control. And if he goes and puts up another 2 touchdown game, because he should have probably been on the thumbnail, but Sean Tucker went nuclear yesterday, so we had to shout out Sean Tucker. Like Hendo's got 5 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, and yes, Ramondre is going to come back and see some of the work, but if Hendo goes out and puts up another 2 touchdown game, Scott, people are going to be completely irrational with some of the Henderson deals and what you're going to have to pay to go get him. Like if you want off the train, I think you got to go. I think you can almost send Hendo straight up for Achane, because there might be some people that just don't like that Achane situation. They just don't like it. They're afraid. They're afraid he's going to fall apart, or they're afraid that Miami's going to change their coaching staff, and they're going to be it's just going to be very uncomfortable for them. And Hendo's safe. He's with Drake May. He's with the Patriots. Vrabel's starting to like him. They're feeling comfortable. I mean, here you go. Hendo over Barkley. Like he's already way over those guys. So take advantage of it. That's kind of that's maybe the 4th takeaway this week is take advantage of some of these guys that are spiking. Take full advantage of them. But I do want to shout out a couple super chats, because we did get a few throughout the night. I'm trying to find them here. Shout out to Old School. Appreciate the show sticker. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Scott and I, we enjoy this. This is one of our fun shows. We don't have too much going on in it. We just have some fun. But we did get a super chat. Boring question, but was offered Shaheed for a mid-26 third. PPR starts 7, also to the moon. What's his realistic ceiling? Drake London's always been your comp. So Shaheed or a mid-third, Scott. It's a pretty shallow, I'm going to assume 12 by 7 PPR.
You got to have a place to put him. this isn't the type of buy that you're buying for any sort of investment, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a start 7. So like that line is, here is the threshold. It's like above where you can see off my screen. You know what I mean? So start 7. Like you got to have a plan. If I'm buying Rashid Shaheed, what is the plan?
Yeah.
I would hope he's not going in the lineup, but you got to have a plan. Otherwise, you know what I would value? Anything that doesn't have a plan, give me any pick. Because you know what happens in these shallow leagues, Brandon? People undervalue later picks because they go, well, they're never going to become starters. But you know what they do? They cycle through the dead players on your roster that are below the starting threshold anyway. So yeah, sure. Would I rather have, I don't know, Jerry Jeudy or a 4th? Probably Jerry Jeudy, but not in a start 7. You know why? Because Jerry Judy's below anything that would ever matter. So give me anything new in the offseason. I'd rather have the 410 because I can recycle my roster. I can turn it over quicker. I get more new blood on my team in a format where there's very little that matters. So yeah, give me the 3rd.
Yeah, give me the 3rd. And then realistic ceiling for Tet. I mean, can he be a wide receiver, back end wide receiver 1 most years? Can that be where he lands? I mean, he's right now in points per game, wide receiver 21.
Well, I mean, this is only, I believe, the 4th game where Bryce Young is at over 300 yards. Yeah, he has a Bryce Young problem. Forget this past week. It was a great game. Bryce Young had his best game ever. The game script was awesome. Like, perfect. He still has a Bryce Young problem, Brandon. Like, unless this is the Bryce Young going forward, which I don't think we project him to be a 300-yard passer every week, right? He's probably going to go right back to, I mean, literally every time he's had a good game, it's been followed with like games of, should he even be the starter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Ray's talked about it. We've talked about it on the Trinity show. Tet McMillan can't do any more than what he's doing this year. Period.
Yeah.
The only way he hits a true ceiling is his environment needs to be better. And that probably means a different quarterback or a quarterback that just somehow it clicked. And now he's awesome. Like that, he needs a better environment. Otherwise, he's always going to be toiled in this, wow, what if he was on the Chiefs? You know what I mean? Like it's always going to be what if. Nothing to take away from him. He's doing everything you could have imagined and more.
Yeah, he's a solid wide receiver. He's solid wide receiver 2. He'll have some wide receiver 1 weeks like he did yesterday. And, we'll just have to kind of live with it until they either change the environment or they stick with Bryce, which is fun fact. Bryce is one of 8 quarterbacks that has three touchdown games this season. We did that stat in the Heisman voice chat today. He's one of 8. Not even Joe Flacco, Baker Mayfield. He's in the likes and company of guys like Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Matt Stafford, Patrick Mahomes. Those are guys that have 3 touchdowns. And here's Bryce Young, like Bryce Young, Jalen Hurts. For all the crap we slung at those two tonight, Bryce Young, Jalen Hurts are one of 2 of 8 quarterbacks that have 3 touchdown pass games this season. So it's crazy to think about all of that. But that does it for week 11 Dynasty Takeaways. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Scott puts out a ton of content on this channel. Feels like almost every day. Scott will be here Wednesday night, pending Shane's health, right? Pending our friend Shane gets better. There will be Mannequin Chill. Make sure you tap in with Ray and Scott for the Trinity show. If you want early access to it, make sure you sign up for the Trades and Chill chat. $3.99. Try it for a month. If you don't like it, just cancel. But I guarantee you probably will like it because you get all that insight. You get the Dynasty Deal Show with Scott again and Shane and Ty. So those 3 go through all the trades. But Scott, anything else you got before we get out of here?
No, I mean, this will probably be the theme over the next couple of weeks. Like this is the time to move. Go through your teams, go through each team. Ask yourself, why do I have these players? Is there a justification to hold them through the next year? Like your Stetson Bennett example. Just kind of go, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. Just ballpark it. Hey, Brandon, why do you have Adam Troutman? If you can't answer me, even if it's a half-assed answer, if you can't do it within 10 seconds, it's probably time to go, let's look on waivers and see if there's anything else. So just go through that analysis. That's how you set yourself up for success going into the offseason.
Well, that does it for us. Have a great week. Patreon.com/allgas. We're going to continue some of these conversations while we watch the Monday Night Football game. But until next week, we are out. Peace.